So wait, you want me to spend my money?
Well, yes, not you, Matt. I know, you know what? No, you should not spend your money, but everybody else, the listeners out there, spend your money.
Wait, could we spend your money?
Yes. In fact, we could talk all about it. We can talk about all the cool ways we can spend my money.
Hey, welcome to the show, currently titled, and we're going to get to this, Not Your Boring Money Show, Matt Robeson with our certified financial planner, Mike Morton, and we are all about helping busy parents who just want to lighten the load. Life is busy. Your finances don't have to be. We're here to help. Mike's here to help. I'm here to hurt, I think, more than help.
That's
I'm not sure that I'm...
Well, you've got your role. But look, everyone has their role, Matt.
I'm a role player. Today's topic is interesting because we've got a lot teed up. You want to take us through this idea that we were sort of teasing ourselves about, like, it's okay to spend your money if you're intentional about it. Like, spending your money is a good thing. And we tend to, in finance and in financial planning shows, you tend to talk about like, oh, save your money. Don't, be afraid, be very afraid. And I think we're trying to take some of the stigma, some of the mental load out of that. And stay tuned, because as part of that rundown, we've got an awesome listener question. Thank you, listeners, for sending these in. We've got a great one today that ties right into this theme. And stay tuned for the very end when we've got a one thing segment that I really identify. One thing that could mean you might get more retirement money. Yay. Sound good?
Yeah, that's right. The one thing is if you worked in the public and private sectors, some new laws just coming into existence that you be entitled to more money.
I should have worded that differently. I've worked in the public and private sectors. I might get more money. And you're going to tell me to spend it. You jerk.
Yeah.
Hey, while I'm calling you a jerk, can we address the fact that you change your name more often than the band Spinal Tap? So just to clarify for people, though, this is still financial life planning or planning for you're workshopping. You're actively workshopping.
For those listening over the last few weeks, we've been actively workshopping the title of this podcast. We will continue to workshop, but hopefully we're almost there. So
we will happily, along with your ongoing listener questions, accept your ideas. We might have to crowdsource this. We might have to put out some ideas and get some feedback. But if you would like to kind of al fresco come up with your own suggestions for what Mike should call this podcast, please feel free to send them in along with suggestions for how we should spend his money. Speaking of which, Mike, why should we spend our money?
So this is all about the permission to spend your money. We have so many decades, right, of working and saving. So from the time, hopefully when you were a kid growing up, you're kind of like, oh, save your money, get some allowance. You're like putting it in the piggy bank, so you're learning to save for important items in the future, delayed gratification. And then, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. So many decades of putting away in the 401ks and the IRAs. And that's just pounded into us, which is a good thing. I mean, you don't get the opportunity to spend money in the future if you don't save money. So it's a really good thing. But the problem is I run into a lot of circumstances where that's the mentality, and it's hard to flip it to spending your money. And so today we have 4 different examples and different stages of life, not just, in retirement, spending money, not just that, but 4 different stages of life where you can have permission. I give you permission, Matt, to spend your money responsibly. Asterisks, responsibly.
I'll tell you what I really love about the topic today is that I think it goes right to the heart of what you're all about in doing this show and in your financial planning practice, which is what we're trying to, it all connects, which is what we're trying to capture with the name of the show that's kind of still evolving, which is that I think most financial planning content, I hate the word content, it sounds like gray goo, but most financial planning, financial advice content out there has a perverse effect. It adds stress because it's all about not just the reminders of all the things that you should be doing that are on your to-do list, but it's the same thing that social media does to us, where you see everyone out there living their idealized version of their best life, which is total BS because it's not real. It's a curated fantasy that you present to the outside world. And so when you hear financial planning advice, it's like, you should do this, you should do this. And my reaction to that is generally, that's great. fudge you, man. I don't have the time. I am busy. And so I just love this idea of, hey, you know what? Why do we do all this stuff? It's so that you can get the most out of your life. You can enjoy it. And anyway, well, let's get into your list. But I will tell you that this is literally the conversation that my wife and I are having right now. And it's very timely.
All right. Wait, I want to start there then. What's the conversation that you're having right now?
Okay, you want to start there? All right. I mean, it's your name on the banner, dude. Well, my wife had a very good insight, which is that our kids are at ages where this upcoming spring break from school is going to be the last one that all of their schedules are the same. It's going to start to break in future years as they go to different schools, and it can line up with ours. We need to take a family vacation. And what's so hard about it is I do this show with you, and in our partnership, me and my wife, I'm the one who takes care of, the finances and the accounts and et cetera. So I'm always in the mindset that you just described, which is gotta save, gotta optimize, don't overspend, keep an eye on the budget. And it's so hard just to get out of the mindset of, if we're thoughtful about this and it's part of a plan, we can do this and we should do this, because otherwise we're missing an opportunity that will never come back again with our kids.
Yeah, 100%. Let me ask you this question. Is there a trip in the last, say 5 years, not recent, not like a few months ago, but, something big that you guys did 3 years ago, 5 years ago, that the kid, like you still bring up now and then, like, oh yeah, this was so fun, or funny moments, or like a memory? Is there something that you guys have?
Oh, there is. We've definitely been able to build. It's not like we do zero travel as a family. It's not like we do zero recreation as a family, but we've never gone on a plane trip together. One of my children has never been on a plane. So it's more a matter of, I think you said this in a prior show. You don't have to, you can build family memories. You don't have to like do super extravagant things. So the answer is yes, we do. And it's
so my question
valuable.
Is how much, how much joy does that bring when you like if you think about tonight, it's tonight, like at the dinner table, oh yeah, I'm going to bring up that, what we did, right?
Oh yeah, a lot. And it's interesting because the man who invented behavioral economics, Daniel Kahneman, talks about this in a TED Talk, that we have two lives, right? We have our experienced life and our remembered life. And his example is a trip he took to Antarctica once, and like 20 years ago. Well, he's passed away since. And how often does he kind of dust off that memory and consume it? And his point is, not that often. But the answer to your question, I think what's relevant for today's show is we do that a lot. And maybe it's not one memory. It's, like a whole bunch that we rotate through, and we'll talk about this experience or that experience. And it's really important. It's the substrate of kind of, our conversation and experiences of family. So like very, very valuable.
Yeah. So in, say, 4 or 5 years from now, your kids are getting ready to go off to college, or, one or two of them, or you're in that time frame, and you look back to this spring, 4 years later, 5 years later, and you say, wow, I can't believe you're going to college. Remember we took that plane trip as a family and went there and did this thing? Like, wasn't that like, oh, so amazing?
First of all, I can't believe you're bringing up my mental sore spot. It's like, why don't you give me a nice paper cut and rub it in some lemon juice? I don't want to think about my kid going off to college, man. Come on. But yeah, that is, and that's why when you told me a few minutes ago that this was the topic you wanted to tackle today, it's like, once again, you've got my house bugged, because this is what we're talking about. It's like, we want to do this while we have the opportunity. If we miss this window, it will not come again, ever, unless we way in the far future when my kids are all adults, we construct it together. But it won't come like this. And that's a different kind of investment for the future, right? Like, we think about investment as financial investment. But what you're talking about is an investment in an experience that we share together as a family, that we're going to continue to benefit from for years to come.
And what's a better way of using your money than that kind of investment?
I can't think of one. I can't take it with me in my
right.
increasingly short lifespan.
You can leave it to me, but this might be a better use.
We're spending
for you.
your money. That's the best part of this, is that you're paying for this vacation.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, the 25 cents you make on this show.
So you wanted to give us the 4 reasons.
Yes, 4 different stages.
Yeah.
All right, 4 different stages. And this is number 2, stage of life. And one of my other friends, one of my clients said to me, they're in similar situation as us, Matt. Kids are getting ready to go to college. And she said, Mike, I feel like I have a 5-year window. And I really want to focus on this 5-year window of opportunity. Right? And that's an amazing way of looking at it. So this is number 2, the stage of life when you've got kids at home still, and they're going to be, hopefully, cross fingers, they're going to be leaving at some point and starting to craft their own life and enjoy that. You have an opportunity to invest, like you said, Matt, invest some of your money in building those shared memories that pay massive dividends. And for me, the way I think about it, it's not just a shared memory that we enjoy together and bring back up and dust off and smile again. It's also investing in relationships with your kids that you hope to have for decades to come. So investing not only your time, but some of your money into that experience and those relationships. So Matt, if I had a magic wand, I would say, dude, I give you permission to spend your money on those kinds of investments.
Well, and it doesn't all have to be trips. You and I both weigh heavily toward experiences over things. But I applied the same kind of thinking this past Christmas to my 11-year-old, who has been asking for years for a PS5. And I have this very skinflinty kind of, no, you can go outside and play with squirrels, But I eventually kind of he jawboned me into it, honestly. He's a smart kid, that one. But the thing that turned me on it was, you know what? He's 11. This is fun for him now. This is the window where this is like an awesome thing. And is it a little extravagant for us? It is. But it's also something that for the next few years, he's had so many friends over already. His little brothers had friends over already. They're playing with their friends. The 2 boys have been connecting together. And it's that is the same kind of investment, same kind of thinking.
Yeah. So when am I coming over to play the PS5? Sounds awesome.
Can't you do it remotely?
Are you allowed? Your son's allowed to have his friends
not allowed
over,
to touch
and his brother. Are you allowed to have friends over?
Me? I'm not allowed to have friends. That was part of my marriage contract. So wait, you said that this was number 2. So just to reground myself here, you wanted to go through sort of the 4 ways to think about spending your money, and we just did number 2, which is you're at a stage of life. This is a good time to spend your money because you're in a certain stage of life. What was number 1? Did we skip it?
Yeah, we skipped it. It was fun. Number 1 is saving for a special occasion. And I ran across this. It was a great Wall Street Journal article for younger folks. And the article was about, hey, I grew up in kind of a frugal household. We didn't really spend what we were talking about at the top of the show, just, saving. Everything's got to be saving. Be very careful about what you spend. And that frugal mindset's great. It really treats you well for the future. And as in this episode, you also need to spend your money on things that are important to you to enjoy your best life. So her recommendation, I love this, was to save for a special occasion. It's her birthday in this case. So once a year, she'll save up and do something extravagant for her birthday.
Treat yourself.
Yeah, treat yourself. And actually her friends, it was actually more about her friends and the experience part. So she'd throw a big party. It'd be a themed party. Maybe it was like a trip everybody would go on, or renting out a big space and having a big party together. So just, saving for that special occasion. And then throughout the rest of the year, you're building that up. Oh, what am I going to do? It's coming up next month, or, whatever it is. It helps you with saving or living a little more frugally, and then saving specifically for that occasion. So you could set up a separate bank account, put some automatic deposits in there. And I really like this as a way to give yourself permission to spend. All right. By having dedicated savings. Maybe it's a big trip that you want to take with your family next year in 2025 or 2026. So you get started on that. set up a bank account specifically for that thing, make some automatic deposits into it. And when it comes time to spend, you will have a way easier time doing that, knowing the money's already been set aside for that occasion.
Dude, can I do a Christopher Nolan here and tell you that was the future, and in the past, I already received your message. Only
if you do the sound effects with it.
Oh gosh, you incepted me there. You made a reference to this. Now I'm going to make time linear again. You actually made a reference to doing this, setting up a special use account that's specifically for one saving goal. And I decided to do this. I haven't actually clicked the button yet. I'm going to click the button, but I'm going to do this. And it is also around kind of like this experiential type thing. The World Cup is coming to the US in 2026. I have talked to my family about this. This is important to me. I am a massive US men's national team fan, and I am setting aside an account. We're going to put money aside monthly, and we're going to have a fund going so that we can take an awesome trip in 2026. And it's a year and a half away. For me, it's super helpful because there's no way this isn't going to be a multi-$1,000 thing. And the only way I'm going to be able to get there is if I've got the money set up for this. It's for this purpose. And along the way, the other advantage of setting up the account in advance is, put it in a CD, get a little interest, make $100 along the way. Works.
All right. When are you going to open that account and set up the automatic transfers?
I am going to open that account this week. By the time we record our next episode, I'm going to report back to you that I did it. I'll even make it a one thing segment. And if it turns out to be a bigger pain in the ass than I'm anticipating it's going to be, I will report back to you on that as part of my ongoing thesis that everything in the world is a pain in the ass.
What chapter would that be? You can add it to your book. It'll be
the chapters are infinite.
27.
Well, okay. If you want to hear about this kind of pain in the ass, press 1. You have to listen to the whole menu. Our menu options have changed. This is my point, right? Good. It's like everything is a pain in the ass. So all right. I don't know. It'll be some chapter.
We'll get back to that one.
Hey, speaking of getting back to things, what is your number 3? We've done number 1, saving for a special occasion. We've done number 2, which is we're entering a stage of life and we want to leverage it. What's number 3?
Number 3 is in retirement, enjoy the savings that you've accumulated throughout your lifetime. And this is a real challenge one, especially for those that have been great savers, throughout their careers. In fact, there was a stat, Matt. Look at that.
Oh, gosh.
There was a statistic. The top 20%, the wealthiest sort of 20%, could spend $1 million more over their 30-year retirement than they do. And that includes setting aside, some emergency savings. So you could spend $1 million more over that 30-year retirement. That's quite a lot. People say, well, you better start flying first class or your kids will instead. So I have a personal story on this too. One of my clients came to me and they're in their 70s and they've saved $3 million. So they have $3 million in their 70s. And their total expenses are about $175,000, but their Social Security kicks in about $75,000. So their expenses are about $100,000 out of pocket, which is only about 3% of that portfolio, which is, again, sort of massively underspending. They have the opportunity to spend a lot more, whether that's giving that money away, transferring it to their kids to see it being used during their lifetime rather than when they pass away. And so those are the kinds of conversations, if you have done a good job saving and accumulating, give yourself permission to enjoy spending that money, whether it's literally spending it or giving it away or using it for causes that, believe in or family or whatever it is.
I love those in the top 20% could spend about $1 million more. I mean, look, we don't need to give the wealthiest among us permission to spend more money, except apparently we do. And I think even if you're not quite there, I think the same lesson applies, because if what you're saying is you've got to be in the top 5th of wealth to spend $1 million more over a 30-year retirement, that's about $30K a year, right? That's like a couple trips that, you could really do some stuff with that money. Even if you're not there, it's an appreciable percentage of that still, right? That you probably got available to you. So it's directionally helpful. All right.
Yeah. And I think I want to just highlight that because I've definitely run across this all the time, Matt. And it's a real thing. Like you spend, again, I'm sorry to harp on it, but decades and decades of saving. It's really hard to flip the switch. Not only is it retirement, like I'm leaving my job, potentially my community of coworkers and all that, the identity, that's a big deal. Yeah. But then also to flip to how do I spend this money? I mean, it's bizarre, to think like, all right, I've got a couple million and I need to spend 50 grand, 100 grand, every year. How do you set that up? How do you do it?
Right. Especially if you've got a required minimum distribution, right? So it's like, here it is. You are required to take this money. Now what? And again, look, I mean, every caveat understood here of we're talking about good problems to have, but just because they're good problems doesn't mean that they're not psychological mountains. Because I can tell you that where I am in the life cycle, it is hard. I'm so trained to the idea of saving, frugality, and it's partly kind of like a values thing, a frugality thing, wanting to teach good lessons to my kids, and so I want to live that. And there's a balance here, and I like the idea of giving ourselves a little nudge so that we don't get too far out of whack. Speaking of which, perfect setup for category number 4 and our listener question, which I will read to you, even though you received it. I'm going to read it to you. I'm like Siri.
That's why I hire you, Matt, so you can read my messages for me.
It's like Galaxy Quest, where Sigourney Weaver realizes that the only function of the computer, this is like making fun of Star Trek, is to just say out loud what the computer already said. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna Sigourney Weaver this. The question: should I build my dream home for $1.5 million, purchase a nice fixer-upper for $750,000, or continue to rent? So there's the dilemma, right? What do you say?
Yeah. Now I left out the important piece of the puzzle. These guys are great savers. They've got good retirement funds already and have over $1 million saved in their brokerage account. Okay. So they've got retirement funds, maybe like $1 million, and then another $1 million in a brokerage.
And can you give me an age range for these folks? Just like
they're in their 40s, 50s.
Okay.
So still working and saving, massively saving.
Got it.
Yeah. I mean, as you can tell, already got a couple million.
Yeah.
They're very, very good savers.
Doing well. Yeah.
Okay. That's the setup. And so they came to me and we're talking through options like, and they have a piece of land. We want to build our dream home for 1.5 million. Man, as you know, over the last couple of years, that price really increased, from where they are hoping it was going to be, based on, contractor costs and material costs, et cetera. And so they're really kind of contemplating, geez, are we going to plunk that down and get this massive mortgage and then kind of feel tied, to this mortgage? It's going to be really big. Or should we get this fixer upper, half the price and put in a couple $100,000 and have a nice property, but not like that dream that we've been really thinking about. And it came up in the conversation. I said, you have this money in your brokerage account, so if I was going to build a $1.5 million dream house, I might put down 50, 60, 70% and take out a smaller mortgage. Rather than the $1 million sitting in stocks, why don't you just invest that in your house? And it was suddenly silence. And they were like, oh, I never thought about doing that. I was like, it's your money, right? Why have it sitting in stocks and bonds? Why don't you put it to work? Put it into the equity of your home. It's a different risk. Obviously, I think about it, but then you're using your money, right? So massively reduces your mortgage, so you can still enjoy trips every year, not feel like you have a big, monthly payment. And instead of the money just sitting in some bank account, you can go spend it. And literally, Matt, there was silence, and they're like, never even thought about that. So the permission to spend, in that case had a massive impact where they went back to the drawing boards like, oh, what would that mean? And now they can really kind of think through those options again, knowing they have permission to spend their own money or in this case, invest it.
I think one of the things that sets that story and that example apart from other types of spending, and it's useful in my mind anyway to have categories here. We've talked a lot about experiences. That's one kind of investment. It's an investment in connections to the people around you and the kind of substrate of your life that builds for a good remembered life. And what you're talking about is sort of a different category of something that is, yes, it's a thing, it's an object, it's a physical investment, but it's also the kind of thing that is kind of experiential as well, because it's about how you live your life every day. And so I would separate that from, the same kid who talked me into getting a PS5 is like, let's get a Tesla. And I'm like, no, because there's a direct trade-off of you do want to go to college, don't you? Because that's where that money is saved for right now. And that's not something in my mind that would functionally change the experience of my life. Now, might be different for other people. Like for other people, hey, if you get a thrill out of a certain kind of car, that does something for you, that's part of your life experience, great, bully for you, and more power to you. And then you should consider it. For us, the version of this was something that we talked about in a recent show, which was my wife pushing 6 years ago for us to do an expansion on our kitchen. And I was stuck. I was having this exact dilemma that the listener raises of like, I could continue to save this. And what eventually put me over, it wasn't quite the argument that you gave your client, which is, this is a different type of investment. For me, it was the investment in the experience. And we have gotten so much day to day and like big anchor events in our life use out of that space in our house that it's been worth it many times over to us. So for me, that kind of breakdown of the different ways you can spend your money is helpful. And it makes things that are, yes, they're physical investments, but they're partly experiential, seem more worth it. If that makes any sense.
Absolutely. I think there's a couple of things there. One is it a different type of investment? And that's the case with this story or your kitchen, where it's like, hey, I'm going to spend money, but it's just moving from the bank into my home.
Right.
And so at some point, you might sell your home and you have the value there. The other thing it brings up for me is just investing in your environment. So rather than like, sort of one-time experience, you're making an investment to your everyday experience that can bring massive joy and value. Either it's a car, it's a nice, piece of equipment, a new camera, new phone, whatever is going to kind of bring you joy every time you use an item or an environment can make a really massive difference to your enjoyment of life. So yeah, there's different ways of investing and spending your money to enjoy the way you want to go through this life.
Well, that's a great jumping off point to close out this and get to our one thing segment. And what I love about the one thing segment today is it means that maybe I should spend even more because I might have more money in retirement. Mike, why might I, and other people listening to this out there, have more money than they reckoned on in retirement?
So this is a public service announcement that the Social Security Fairness Act has been signed into law. And what is this act? If you worked in the private sector, then you pay into Social Security. Right? So automatically as part of your taxes is paying into Social Security. And then eventually at some point down the road, you hopefully will claim Social Security and get paid back your money that you put into it. Doesn't exactly work that way, but that's the concept. Now, if you work in the public sector, a lot of times you have pension plans. So we're in the state of Massachusetts. If you worked for the teachers here in Massachusetts, so you work at a public school or in the school system, you do not pay into Social Security. If you look at your pay stub, there is no deduction for Social Security. However, there's a deductions for Massachusetts pension. Okay. So you have the same idea. You're paying into a pension system that has rules. And at some point you work 10, 20 years. When you retire, you get money back. All right. From that system. Now, the thing is, so if you work in one all your life, private sector and Social Security, you get that. You work in Massachusetts, public sector pension, then you get that. But what if you spend 15 years in one and 15 years in the other? Unfortunately, you were penalized and you basically got sort of less of each or none of one and less of the other. And so you really got penalized because you didn't reach the 20 or 30 year mark in the pension system where you get, kind of bigger boosts. You only work 15 years and then Social Security, you only paid in 15 years. So you really don't get much Social Security. They have eliminated what's called the WEP and the GPO. They've eliminated those. So now you can get both your pension from the public sector and Social Security for the time that you paid into Social Security.
I am crushed because that's not the kind of public sector work that I've done. Therefore, this has been entirely useless to me. Thanks for nothing, Mike Morton. However, I am buoyed by the fact that this might be very relevant to other viewers and listeners. I'm nothing if not highly altruistic. So that was a good PSA for other people. Not for me, but for other people.
Not for you. Not so much for you. But it's a really, really big deal because I run across this all the time. It's like, I worked 15 years for this. I'm not really getting much out of it because you got to work 20 or 30 years. And the same, in Social Security, same idea. I've only worked 15 years. So this is a big boon for those people.
All right. We've got to get out of here. So let's just close on this. I want to ask you, Mike, since you're workshopping the potential title for the show of Not Your Boring Money Show. Were we boring?
One of us was boring. No.
But you won't reveal which one.
That's right.
All right.
The listeners know.
Keep that feedback coming because we want to hear from you on the title and whether or not Mike was boring. And on that note, for Mike Morton, I'm Matt Robeson. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for joining us on Financial Life Planning. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to and rate the podcast on Apple iTunes or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. It makes a massive difference. If you have a comment or question, please email me, mike@mortonfa.com. Until next time, thanks for tuning in. This recording is for informational purposes only and should not be considered for investment advice. Opinions expressed are as of the date of recording. Such opinions are subject to change. I cannot guarantee the accuracy or completeness of the data presented here.